Well, morning everyone, and just got a handle on the time here. We're going through to 12:30, so I'll talk half that time. We'll do a bit of Q&A after that. But before I get up, seeing that I've got that sort of time, I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine. Peter, if you could come. This man is from London. One of you could give him a round of applause to encourage the guy. And do we have another mic? Rod? Or I can just go like this. That one? Okay, let me give you a quick fact file from Peter, because I've asked him these questions ad nauseum the last week. He's staying with me. He's spending a few days with us. Peter's exactly my age. You can guess how old that is. Exact same year, exact same day, a couple of months apart. He was born in England. He's Jamaican descent. He's planted a couple of churches in the West Indies. He spent most of his high school years in jail. And he got saved when he was about 18 in prison, watching, those of you old enough to remember, Nicky Cruz, David Wilkinson crossing the switchblade. He started planting churches when he was 24. Presently, he has a movement called Ark Global with about 50 churches in them. He's planted 11 churches in London. A number of them have bought buildings over the years. Birmingham, he's got churches that partner with him in Uganda and Cuba. And so he's hanging with me. He was just going to come and sit and listen, but I think we've got a prolific church planter with us. So I've asked him if I can ask a couple of questions on church planting. How about that? I know most of you won't be planting in cities like London, but so you've planted London,
yep.
Birmingham,
yeah,
Ireland, St. Lucia, which is somewhere out there in the Caribbean islands, yeah. So let's wind you back to your very first church plant in England, not your Caribbean one, your church plant in England. How old are you? About 29, if I remember.
29, 30, 29, 30.
Okay. And you were in a church at the time.
Yeah.
What was the catalyst that got you going to go and plant a church in England?
So I'd been on a mission field for 5 years, came back to England, and had one whole year of knowing that God was calling me to something, but didn't know where, I knew it was to plant, but didn't know where it was. And then one night I had a dream or a vision, and I saw a red door, and I saw a train station, Stratford train station. This is in the dream or the vision. So I woke up in the morning, got in my car, drove to Stratford, and I drove around the whole...
How far was Stratford from where you were living?
Literally a mile.
Okay.
I drove around Stratford and I found a red door.
Wow.
I knocked on the door.
Who was behind that door?
A lady named Jean. And I asked her what she did there. She said they do tap dancing, ballet dance, teaching children. So I said, can I have a look? She said, why? I said, it's weird, but I had a vision about a red door. She said, yeah, very strange, Peter. But she let me in, and as I got in there, the Lord said, this is where I want you to start. So
you started behind the red door?
Behind that red door, yeah.
You, your wife, you had a couple of kids at the time?
Yeah, and another couple, James and Deirdre. 4 of us. And the first service, you had 1 visitor.
5 of you? Yeah. What did you do in that first service?
Sang and preached. And that visitor got saved.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so this is a long time ago. 29 would have put
28 years ago.
Yeah.
Sunday gone was 28 years.
Oh, yeah. So they did their celebration this last Sunday. I was watching it while we were driving up to Langebaan. He had it online. Amazing what we can do these days, eh? So from those 5 people, what happened the next week?
A few more visitors came.
Why did they come?
Because we was doing outreach. We went out on the street. We were preaching back then, street preaching, giving out flyers, leaflets. We don't do much of that anymore, but yeah. So back then we was out on the street preaching and dropping flyers through letterboxes, just talking to people.
Okay. Well, in this country we can't get into the yards because of the dogs and stuff. But so I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I can remember you saying that the 3 W's that sort of have anchored you over the last 28 years are welcome, worship, and the word. Mm-hmm. Those are the 3 things you look at when you're planting and when you're building a healthy church. Give us a couple of minutes on each of those. Why?
So I think from the outset, we decided that anyone that came and visited us, they were going to get an extra special welcome and also a follow-up. So they wouldn't just come, visit, and then go. So
that word welcome to you means not just inviting people, but following up, showing interest, integrating them into the church, connecting when that's a huge thing.
They would get a call, they would get a letter. We started sending like type letters, and then I decided no, handwritten, so we would write handwritten.
So can I put it this way? Faithful with every visitor that comes.
Every person that came.
Faithful.
Got
Don't
special
take
treatment.
one for granted.
No.
Okay.
We're just happy.
Okay. Okay. So let's just fast forward a little bit. Your churches are quite big now. Can a visitor sneak in and sneak out without being noticed?
In our building in Forest Gate, possibly, because it's a 500-seater and we have a balcony. But we've put people up there and we have guest ministry at the door. But that guest ministry rotates. Yeah. So maybe they might miss.
Okay.
But we have a strong, trained guest ministry. But I feel like people could get missed. But it won't be many weeks.
Okay.
It won't be many weeks. But we pride that we don't want to miss anyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's welcome, and then worship.
The worship, yeah. So we pay much attention to make sure the worship is Jesus-centered, that it's live, that it's powerful, it's an experience that people are going to encounter God.
I've noticed Peter's come with me to connect group meetings, he's come with me to elders meetings, he's come with me to various church meetings, 4 meetings last Sunday, and every time I've seen you in a building when there's worship, you just get lost in worship.
I'm trying to get lost.
Yeah. But he said to me, every time that we've left a building or left a church meeting or whatever, I say, perspective on it, I can see he's politely, because he's English, he's politely saying, that worship needs a bit of work. So from the South African worship, and he's been to South Africa 7 times before, what do you think needs to happen to our worship?
I don't know. I just feel like, I always, to our people in England, I compare it to the people in the football stands. I feel like they get excited about a football team, people kicking, and you see the passion and that kind of the singing, the hands lifted.
At Old Trafford. You're talking about Old Trafford.
No, I'm talking about Arsenal.
All right.
Actually, when I using the illustration, I mainly focus on a team called Newcastle, because their fans are wild. I mean, and so I feel like if they can be that way.
Didn't they just beat a team in?
They did. They beat a team called Liverpool, I think. Yeah. So I really use that as an example of them being passionate about football. How we can get our churches passionate about Jesus and get that same kind of atmosphere in our churches.
Okay. And do you think a person who's just coming to church, that they're making up their mind in that worship set pretty much, whether God's here, these people are serious, do you think things are going on like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think especially in the worship, we'll just see people weeping in the midst of it. They'd never been in nothing like that in their life. Yeah. They'd never seen people passionate about God like that.
Yeah.
So, I think.
And then the word that's being faithful.
The preaching, it's on point, it's powerful, it's revelatory, it's passionate again.
Yeah.
And,
Okay, so I want to jump back quickly to church planting again. Most of these people feel in their heart to plant. So they found their red door. They know God's called them. Now, I'm assuming that before the red door, you felt a real call of God to plant.
Yeah. So, I had that twice. I told them I was sharing with you. Yeah.
So you were tricked into it in the first place.
No, there was on the 2 occasions, before St. Lucia and before this, I just found myself weeping and crying and burdened, but I just didn't understand what it was.
Yeah.
And I'll just fall into my wife's hands crying, and she'll be comforting me. She said, what's wrong? I don't know, but God's just touching me. Not realizing that he was calling me into pastoring. First one was the missions to St. Lucia. Second one, it was into this. So, there was a call. I didn't fully understand all that was going on inside of me, but I knew that God was squeezing me.
Today, you say you don't do street preaching. So
we do.
Okay, but
we have a team called Goons for God. They go on the street because they're trying to reach gang leaders.
Okay.
So they go on estates and take the speaker and preach and do crazy stuff. So we do.
Okay, but if you were planning a church in a suburb or an area of, let's say, the south of London, and you had 15, let's say you had 20 people, and you sort of like stuck there, 20 people for about 4 months, and you were talking to the guy leading that church plant, what would you say he needs to pay attention to? What would he be doing Monday to Friday? Let's start with that. What are we doing Monday to Friday before he gets to the weekend? What's he doing Monday to Friday?
Loving people.
How? Where's he finding them?
Everywhere. Like people are everywhere.
Not just the 15 that are coming on Sunday.
No.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, like on the bus, on the train, in the supermarket. People, and I'd say to our people, you don't have to wait till evangelism to evangelize. You don't have to wait until Saturday or whatever day, because every day you're surrounded with people. When you go into the supermarket, into the laundry, on the bus, on the train, wherever you are, just start talking to people and engaging with people. Because even if they don't come, they know someone who has a problem.
Yeah.
And I'll just find that, and then training your people, the 15 people, just to talk to people and engage with people.
Yeah.
That's the key. And I would say now we use social media crazily.
How?
Like insane.
How?
We have someone employed just for social media, for global, but every one of our congregations has a social media person.
What do they do?
Taking content every Sunday, just capturing content, being creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you got a way, other than them just doing it their own way, have they got a way of making that thing go viral, making that thing
Some of them do.
But you don't have like a strategy.
They don't all go viral.
Yeah.
But
You don't say, everybody take out your phones, take this thing. You don't do it like that.
We have done that some Sundays. Some Sundays we have said, like, just to get people engaged.
Okay.
But not most of the time. We are always capturing content.
What God's
so you're
doing.
always posting content, and it's not everything everyone needs to see. But
And would you say people come to church because of that?
oh yeah. If we now, I think at Forest Gate, I don't know, maybe on a Sunday we'll get 40 so visitors on a Sunday.
40
maybe
first-time
40,
visitors.
yeah. And I would imagine that 80 to 90% of those are coming through social media.
Wow.
Maybe 80%, and then people have invited. But social media is huge.
Wow.
And then we have influencers in our church who, obviously, they're on social media.
Okay.
So when the influencers come and visit, they take pictures or videos, and then they post that. Then we get people from that. So social media is the fly. We used to print 10,000, 20,000 leaflets to give out back in the day.
Yeah.
Whereas now, social media, bam, it's like you're hitting thousands. So,
cool.
yeah.
So Peter's going to leave just now and spend some time with Marcus. Does anyone have a question for Peter? So we missed the end of that question. What does evangelism look like when he's going out during the week? So when you said loving people, and what's that look like?
We have planned evangelism. We do planned evangelism where it's organized. Teams go out Friday nights, maybe Saturdays. But I emphasize and encourage people that evangelism doesn't have to be Friday, Saturday. We really encourage our people to, in the week, just to use their days to be talking to people and engaging. Because we just talk to people we know, and we do that every week. But there's people always around us. And so evangelism is just having conversations and just engaging with people. So I'd say that's the better style than waiting for Friday or Saturday, encouraging the people to give out. And so printing little, maybe business card, flyers, just so people can keep it in their purse, in their handbags. When they talk to people, they can give them something. So that would be key. If I was starting now fresh, I would do.
When you
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Let's repeat the question. So, when you got the call to minister or plant, were you working at the time? And if you were working at the time, how did you make the transition from full-time work into
Yeah, the
full-time
first
prayer?
call, I was fully working, and we had just got married. We had bought a house, but I just felt like this is my own experience. It's not going to be everyone else. It felt like I had a ball and chain around my leg, and that was part of it. And I was hearing this scriptures denying houses, lands, fathers, mothers for the gospel's sake, and that's the scriptures that was just burning in me. And so it ended up that we actually gave up our house. I gave up my job, then went to St. Lucia, and so then I was completely, fully just serving as a missionary in St. Lucia. When I came back to England, I was working little things, but because I felt the call, I knew God didn't want me back into work per se. But I was doing little things. Obviously, you have to provide. So it wasn't the second call with the Red Door, that arc. It wasn't like I had to give up a job then, because I was already loosed. But God had to free me from the world, its expectations, and that was difficult at the first.
Yo.
Yeah. The church that I got saved in. So I had said in prison, God, if you get me parole, which means you get out a bit early, I promise you I'll go to church. I came out of prison. I got parole. So instead of doing 2.5 years, I did 20 months. And I tried to find a church, but didn't find a church. So I started to slip back into old habits, old ways. And then we went to a party. And these guys bounced me. I turned around to fight them. Someone said, Peter, leave it. I walked away. 5 minutes later, they bounced my friend. He responded. Fight broke out. And they stabbed him in his heart. And he died in my arms, 18-year-old. And at that stage, this little lady named Doris invited me to a church the following Sunday, which I went. And I gave my life to the Lord there, and that pastor became my father. He's my only ever pastor, and that's where I grew. That's where I was nurtured. Yeah, and so that's the two plants I came out from that church. When I came back from St. Lucia, I went back to that church, and then went out from there again.
Yes, the back, one more. So he's saying that in the UK, we've heard they don't need Jesus because they've got everything that they need. That's the perception he has, not like we in Africa have got our struggles. What's your view on that?
I don't know. I think people need Jesus everywhere. If you take UK people, whether black, white, everyone, people are getting into crystals, they're getting into spirituality, palm reading, all kind of witchcraft even. So there is a definite search for people for spirituality somewhere, where they're not satisfied with the materialism. They realize there's something more. So for me, that even the young people are into crystals and they're into spiritism and stuff like that. So them finding God will be the best thing that could happen to them, because that's what they're really looking for. So whoever they are. And then England also is a melting pot. There's so many nations all over, and there's a lot of, I feel like God has used Africans as missionaries now. In some of our biggest, largest churches in London are African churches, and obviously they're not reaching necessarily Caucasian English people, but they are bringing life. And so the city is definitely, people are open to spirituality.
It's great to hear these stories, eh? Peter, thank you so much for
Thank you,
sharing your
Grub,
heart.
and thank you so much for blessing me.
Bless you, man. So for the next hour or so, I've been asked to speak in this session on building a team, bringing through leaders, building a leadership team, and how that looks from its very inception. So I I'm going to probably use a couple of illustrations from what we're doing in Cape Town, because in Cape Town we're planting new congregations. It's one thing building a team when you've got, decades behind you and a lot of momentum of people. You just like pull people from other sections. But from grassroots, what does that look like? So let me kick off by saying this. I think you need to build a solid leadership team. You need to have a couple of convictions that are not just good ideas. They've got to be deep, deep within your soul. The first one is that it's God's idea that you don't do ministry alone. It's God's idea that you replicate yourself. It's God's idea that you find people to disciple and they do as much as you're doing, and sometimes, in some cases, even better and more. And you can ask God, I think, from the very start of your plant, you can ask Him for team. About 6 weeks ago, my wife and I decided we're going to go plant in a new area of Cape Town called Milnerton. So I didn't know anybody in Milnerton that wasn't in a church. And so I said to Sue, my wife, Wednesday night we're starting. She says, who are we going to invite? I said, I don't know, we're going to go and look for somebody. So this is ground zero of a team. So I knew there are two things I need to be looking for. I need to be looking for people to come to disciple and to walk with. And the second thing is that I knew that, especially because the way that I live, I sort of like, spin a few plates. I move a bit. I'm not going to be there every single week. I'm going to need a strong person. So I can't just have a whole lot of unbelievers joining my new plant, my new team. And so I didn't have anyone to draw in there. So I prayed. I said, God, I'm asking you for someone to come and lead with me. So this is how I went about it. I heard about an old timekeeper at the Milnerton golf course who'd recently lost his wife. And so I'd met him. I went to play a game of golf with him. And that morning, I said to him, it was a 6 o'clock start. I said to him halfway through the round, I'm going to start a connect group in Milnerton. He said, oh, that's so cool. I'd love to go to a connect group. So I said, it's Wednesday night. He said, where is it? I said, I'll let you know. Because I didn't have a venue. And I also didn't tell him he's the first guy coming. Well, actually, second. My wife was coming, so second. So I drove around Milnerton looking for a lounge. So I went to a couple of restaurants, not really suitable. Then I found this iconic hotel that everybody knows in Cape Town. And I knew they had a little conference room. So I went in and I booked. I paid 1,500 rand for the conference room. Could seat about 20. And then I found a fireman. And so I had two people. It was getting close to Wednesday. Two people, me and Sue, that was going to be awkward. So I decided I was going to rent a crowd. People that I knew in Cape Town that didn't live there but would happily come in and help me. So I phoned a whole lot of friends, and they were coming to my first night. But then I knew I would be on my own after that. So Sue and I were in an Uber going to the event, and I said to my wife, what are we doing? I'm like 57 years old. Why don't I just go and do something else? And you get those doubts. And I promise you, when you plant a church and you start to build your team, you're going to think, what the heck am I doing? And so in the car, I say to Sue, you know what we need? We need a John 4 person. Like a John 4 woman? That woman that Jesus found at Jacob's well, that was the most unlikely person. But she went into the village and she said to the village, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. I need a woman like that. Because I don't know anybody in Milnerton. I need a John 4 woman to come and bring the whole of Milnerton to my home group. So in the Uber, Sue and I start praying for a John 4 woman. We just got the gender wrong, but we prayed for the women. We're standing in the lobby. I've got my renter crowd with me, plus the golfer and the fireman. And I see a guy sitting on a couch. And he's sitting on the couch and he's playing on his phone, and he's quite clearly not doing anything other than just eavesdropping. So I walk slightly closer to him. He gets up, he plucks up the courage. He says, are you Grant? I said, I'm Grant. He said, what are you doing here? I said, I'm about to start a meeting. He said, I was told to come and meet you. What are you, like a priest or something? So I said, something like that. So I said, who are you? So he says, I'm Tony. I'm Tony Garcia. As if I should know him. I'm Tony. Tony Garcia. I said, oh, hello, Tony. He said, I'm Tony from Tony's Liquors. He owns a chain of liquor stores. So then he says to me, I'm like the mayor in these parts. And as he said it, I knew there's my John 4 woman at the well. We're sitting around the table. There's like 15 people in the meeting. And I asked them to tell us where they are in their journey with Jesus. And this guy says, funny that, I'm Catholic, is what he says. He says, but you know what, my journey, I've actually just signed up with AA. So, here's the guy who owns a bottle store, signed up with AA. So the guys are all thinking like, don't you own the bottle store? He says, I went to that first meeting last night. Last night I went to that first meeting. I walk in the meeting, I look at him, I realize I know everybody in this place. I put them here. As the bottle store owner, he put everybody there. Tony Garcia, what am I telling that crazy little story for? Because I've only known him for about 5 weeks. And I actually don't know if he's even going to be part of the church long term. But I do know that God is into putting teams together. And you ask him, and he'll send them. I'll tell you who else was there that night. One of my rent-a-crowd was an ex-pastor from Joburg that had relocated to Cape Town. And I didn't know what he was going to do with his life. That night, when he met Tony Garcia, when he met the other guys, he said to me, can I come and run with you? I've got my leader. And he wasn't recruited to lead. He was a rent-a-crowd. God, you've got to have this conviction. If you're building the church that Jesus is building, if you are going to build a ministry team, you can talk to God about this, and you must. This sounds like so basic, but don't try and build this team without talking to him. He will give you gatherers. He will give you those who serve. He will give you those that are going to shape your character. And he will give you those that you can entrust responsibility to. Second conviction you need to have is that I think you need this conviction that God expects every single Christian to lead. Now, most people don't like that because they say, no, some people have a leadership gift. If you have the King of Kings in you, if you have, as a Christian, the governor of governors in you, and he begins to express himself from you, you are going to lead, pal. And that applies to the most unlikely in your church. God has this habit of using the most unlikely people to lead. And I'm not saying that people don't disqualify themselves. I'm not saying that some seasons of their life they're disqualified, but that doesn't undo the fact God expects them to lead themselves. That's what self-discipline is. By the power of the Holy Spirit. He expects you to lead unbelievers to Christ, every single believer. He expects you to lead your family when he gives you one. Every single believer, I think we should be training everybody in the church to be leaders, not just your leadership team. And if that's not a conviction in your heart, you know what's going to happen? You're going to face your crowd on a Sunday and you're going to think, I need to find the strong to look after the weak. No, you want everybody to become strong. That's what discipleship is. Discipleship is moving a baby through the self-absorbed teenager years to an adult spiritually who's looking after other people. You say, Grant, no, there's limits. Well, there's certainly limits on those who you should lay hands on and who you should ordain. But if you haven't got the conviction that there is leadership potential in anybody who carries Jesus, you're going to come short in this building of teams. I was at our Stellenbosch site this last weekend, and we've just got this amazing venue. It's right in the middle of all the residences called the Nielsen. It's like all the fast food places in the whole of Stellenbosch are in this double-story shopping complex. And there's a cinema, 2 cinemas that feed into the middle of it. We've got those 2 cinemas the whole of Sunday morning. So we have got hundreds upon hundreds of people coming. And we've got a shortage of leaders. So these people have only just started coming this year. You know, students, they arrive in February. I think we only had like 8 leaders, but we need like 30 leaders. So our leadership team that's leading the Stellenbosch night is trying to build a leadership team. And they've been watching us over the last number of years, and they think they've got to send everybody through leadership training. They've got to check their personality, make sure that they're not ex-murderers, vet them properly, get them to be attending groups themselves, and then release them into ministry. Now, I would agree with that if you're going to lay hands on them, put them part of your deacon team or your eldership team. But you know what? I wonder, in the early church, when 3,000 were added, at best there's 120 that are available to lead. That's like massive home groups. I am pretty certain there were things going on there with people that hadn't gone through the vetting process. And so this is what I did on Sunday. I walked the crowd. We're up the cinema, so I'm walking in the cinema. I'm meeting people. The place is full of visitors. And I come across a lady who's been in the City Hill youth group. She's been leading the youth group. So I met her 2 weeks ago. So I say to her, Tiny, it's just your name, isn't it? She said, yes, it is. I said, so you used to lead at City Hill? She said, yes. Now, City Hill is a partnering church. I know the guy leading. He would never have got an ex-murderer to lead in his youth group. So I know she's been trained. I know she's got something going. And so I say to her, so have they given you a connect group yet to lead? She says, no, not yet. I said, why not? She says, oh, no, I think we've been a little bit slow on the uptake. So I said, no, that's cool. I meet a lady next to her, and she says, no, she's Megan. So I said, oh, Megan? She says, yes, I come from Grant Boram's church, who's in Port Elizabeth, partnering church. So I said, great, are you leading a connect group yet? She said, no, wait, I'm never ready to do that. But I said, but you're on the leadership team there. She said, yes, I was, but I'm not ready. I've got a hectic job. She says, but this is my friend, first-time visitor. So obviously now I want to celebrate the first-time visitor that's coming. So I shake the hand of the first-time visitor. And the first-time visitor says, I don't know why she doesn't say she's not ready, because I think she's ready. This is a first-time visitor talking about the person who brought them to church. So I said, why do you think she's ready? She says, because she's brought me. She leads me. Let her lead. I'll help her. That's a visitor saying that. Anyway, so we have the church service. Church is coming to an end. I see the leader who's bringing the meeting down to an end. I look over my shoulder and I think to myself, I wonder what percentage are in small groups. I have a look at a list next to me and I can see how many connect groups they've got. They've got about 12. I look at the crowd and I think there's too many people here that are not in connect groups. So I walk up to Tiny. I say, Tiny, do you mind if I fill your home group for you right now? She says, by all means. So as the meeting ended, I made Tiny stand. Has she been on leadership training? No. Am I sure her doctrine exactly the same as mine? No. Am I making her a deacon? No. Am I laying hands on her to become part of some leadership team? No. But I'm recognizing there's a gift on her. She's got a history with partnering people. And there's a little bit of discernment going on here. She's also got leadership gifts. She was like head girl of a big school. This is not rocket science. And we shape the content that they talk about. As the meeting ends, I said to her, can you come to the front and stand here? So her name's Tiny for a reason. So I made her stand in the corner of the cinema. And then I tell a story about how we grow in circles, not in rows. And I say afterwards, if you're not in a connect group, that's where you go. She was mobbed. But before that, I also told you this other story I've just told. I didn't expose Megan, even say where she was in the auditorium, but I told the story about her first-time visitor celebrating her. Why? I'm trying to celebrate two things. Remember, I'm trying to build team here. And this is the conviction you've got to have. It's not just your Marine Corps that's going to build your team with you. You've got to have a conviction that God's going to use everybody, even the first-time visitor. If you don't have that as a conviction, you're going to create a them and a us. You're going to create a little leadership clique that you're going to go and drink pizza and have coffee and pizza with. And it's not wrong, it's going to take you forever. But the Holy Spirit's going to blow in, bring people in, and they're going to go off to Peter's church because he's welcoming visitors and looking after them. That's what's going to happen. So I celebrate the story that, Francois, am I causing you grief? Must I stay on the mat? Is that why it's here? Sorry, my buddy. Sorry. Here we go. It's exciting when you're talking about visitors getting involved. So, so I want to celebrate that person bringing her friend. What you celebrate, you will repeat. You create a culture like that. And then I want to celebrate that the visitor recognized, actually, we should be doing church in homes. And so what happened after the service, the lady who we were talking about comes to me, she's in floods of tears, saying, I want to be ready, I'm not ready, I want to be ready. And it was an incredible ministry moment. I'm not saying you bully people into it, but I'm saying you've got to have the conviction that God can use anyone. When will Tiny officially come onto our leadership team? 1 Timothy 3 says, a deacon must first be tested. Now, where are you going to test them? In a quiz. You test them with people. You test them in the field. And then you lay hands on them. Okay, you got the deal. I should move on, otherwise we're never going to make it to 12:30. My third introductory conviction is that the way God grows things is through multiplication, through multiplying. And I think that's why it's God in His genius. Disciples make disciples, and that just like becomes an exponential equation. And if you realize that, you don't burn out because you're activating a church that's going to multiply itself rather than you having to be the great multiplier. Number 4, when it comes to appointing of leaders, laying hands on them, this is our deacon team, or this is our leadership team, this is our eldership team. Even though you might think, Grant, you're being way too risky with what you're doing, listen, let me just underline this one more time. I challenge you to find somewhere in Scripture where there are conditions for serving. I think Jesus got Judas to serve. I think Jesus used Pharisees to serve. He allowed them to host meetings for Him. I think he allowed complete strangers to serve. Leadership's another matter. So so you risk with people serving. You risk with people in terms of seeing what's inside them. But when it comes to the appointing of leaders, you don't risk with character. And so I'm not saying dilute that. If you can sense there's something wrong, you allow them to continue serving, but you don't release them into leadership if there's a character issue. And you would have heard this said many, many, many times as you build your team. Rather have a stuttering, stammering, non-gifted person giving it a go than a highly gifted person with a fraught heart. Guys, you can't hear that enough. Most churches that I go into to handle splits or to deal with factions that have left is because guys have released people with fraught hearts, whose character hasn't been tested. The churches I go to that get stuck and don't grow are because they're so paranoid everybody might have a fraught heart, they don't release anybody to do anything. Let everybody serve. And once they test it and you've seen the heart, then you can pull that leadership team together. Are you there? Okay, I'm going to give you a teaching in the next 25 minutes that I give our eldership team as a handle to try and help them visualize this pipeline of leaders that we wanting to see constantly. And really, when I say a pipeline of leadership, I'm saying it's a journey of a person starting those early steps of adulthood as a believer, or maturity as a believer, where you begin to serve others. This is what we know, that this is the fulfillment of the law of Christ, that we carry one another's burdens. A mature believer is one who starts to carry other people's weight. So it starts and right through to them who like co-leading with you. So I tell our elders, it's like a pipeline or a corridor that's got these 5 doors in it. And if any of these doors are closed, your pipeline comes to an abrupt halt. I'm talking about a pipeline of leadership, a pipeline of this team that you're building around you. So let's start with this pipeline. The first is that of service, getting everybody to serve. So your leadership team starts with creating a culture of serving. Why? Because you want to pick your leadership team out of those who serve. Jesus, the Son of Man, came to serve, not be served. And so if Jesus is coming to serve, and he lays down his life, that's who you want. When a big CEO arrives in your church, and he comes with great credentials, and he's not prepared to sit down, he's not prepared to set up chairs, he's not prepared to drive a long way, he's not prepared to go the extra mile, you don't ignore him, you give him more opportunities to serve. It's out of those who are serving that you pick your leaders from. Now, if a church, so one of my elders was in England this weekend, he was visiting a church, and I said, does anything disturb you about that church? He says, yes. There were 80 people in the congregation. The pastor did the media. The wife did the worship. I, that was the preacher, did the preaching, and I helped those 2 set up the chairs. I said, there's 4 elders in that church. Where were they? He said, sitting in the congregation. They had established a culture where the hired holy couple was ministering to the flock. They're never going to get a pipeline of leaders through there. There was not one connect group, life group, cell group, whatever you call them. There was not one small group amongst those 80 people. The start point to get this pipeline going in that church in England is to create as many serving opportunities as you can on a Sunday. And in fact, anytime. And when you get people to serve, you don't ask them to do a job. You're giving them an opportunity to be like Jesus. And those who jump at it, that's the pool that you pick your leaders from. Yeah, you got it? That's the first door. Most churches sort of get that thing right. I'm going to use, to anchor my way through these 5 doors, John chapter 12. Remember the story of Lazarus, Martha, Mary? 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served. Lazarus was reclining at the table. Mary took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard and anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. An amazing thing about this house in Bethany, Jesus loved to visit it. In the gospel, he goes there multiple times. What's happening in this house? Service is happening in this house. Martha owns the joint. She's got a proper kitchen washing, dishwashing operation going. She's got people serving. Jesus knew when he arrived there, people were going to be serving. Mary was there. There was worship going on in that place. There's a fragrant offering. And there was a lot of fellowship going on there. Lazarus was the chief recliner. He was gifted at reclining. And every time you see Lazarus, he's doing something relational. He's either the friend of Jesus, he's the beloved of Jesus, he's reclining at a table. And so Jesus goes to this house. He's drawn there like a magnet, and he sees people fellowshipping, he sees people serving, he sees people worshiping. Your congregation, your team that you better put together again, they will have multiple different types of gifts. Find stuff for them to do. Create stuff for them to do. Because if that serving door is not open, your pipeline's not going to begin. The second thing you've got to do, second door, is you've got to call it out of people. What was I doing at Stellenbosch? I was walking up and down. Lady Megan comes from Port Elizabeth. She's looking at me, and I'm calling leadership out of her. I'm not being a bully because she says no. I don't expose it to everybody else. I've exposed it to you, but to nobody else. And because very few people put up their hand and say, pick me. Most people are watching you saying, I wonder if I'm good enough. And they think everybody else in the room is way holier than them. And so Jesus, Mark chapter 12, Mark chapter 3, goes up the mountain, spends the night praying, comes back, calls his disciples that they might be with him. Jesus actually called people to be disciples. We should do the same. I mean, and the way you do it, I think, is modeled in the story. And the way not to do it is also modeled in the story. Martha comes hustling and bustling through in one of those occasions in Bethany. And she stomps her little foot and says, Jesus, tell these guys to come and help me. I mean, it's like, you don't get people volunteering like that. What is Jesus doing? He wants at that stage of the evening people to be worshiping. He looks at Mary and he starts to celebrate what Mary's doing. And he applauds what Mary's doing. The way you get people serving is you recognize what God's put on them and you applaud it. You celebrate it. There was worship going on at Stellenbosch. Peter, who's just left the room, said to me afterwards, for young people, they need some soul. I mean, the room was a bit deadened because of the cinema effect. But before he said that to me, I saw a guy playing one of those boxes, like this, in worship. What do you call that? What's it called? Cahoon. Yeah, he's on one of those. So I walk up to him, I walk onto the stage in the middle of worship, and I go to him and I say to him, bud, you're doing such a great job on that thing. Smack the daylights out of it. And I walked back. I was standing about this far away from the guy. What am I doing? And then afterwards, I found that guy because I realized, actually, if that meeting needs a bit more soul, he's going to be part of it. Might not be the only reason, but he's going to be part of it. And you celebrate that thing. So you not only have got to have an environment of serving, you've got to be saying to people, I see leadership on you. Come and lead. I'm constantly saying this. I see preaching on you. I think God's going to use your voice. It's incredible. When you open your home, what happens? People feel loved when you come to the home. Thank you so much for going to fetch that guy. You know, when you go and visit somebody in a hospital, I hear about it within a few minutes because God uses you when you do that. You know what you're doing when you're celebrating people like that is you're calling it out of them. And so I've told every single one of our leaders that they should be modeling serving. The other thing I tell them to do is they should have at the back of their iPad or the back of their journal, they should have a list of people that they are calling leadership out of. So if you came to my iPad, I won't let you have a look at it because there's a lot of notes written there next to people's names and some lines drawn through other people's names, which can be unlined, I've discovered. But you should have lists of people saying, God, these are the guys that have got potential that are around me, that are not just serving, but can take that next step now and can actually start to think about ministering to other people. If you don't have those lists, so what I've just done right now for that Stellenbosch crowd, yesterday, I phoned the guy who pastors it, and I said, what I would like from you is a list of all the Connect Group leaders and the people that they're training so I can pray for them. Look how I've done that. I haven't set up an admin system that they've got to fulfill. Haven't set up a program, haven't got reports that they've got to write. I've just said to them, give me a list of people I can pray for, the leaders and the people that they've got faith for. When I got that list, what did I realize? Only half the leaders at that site are actually raising up leaders. Are you with me? Call it out of them. That's the second door. The third door, you've got to set a culture of training, of serving. You've got to call it out of them. Third door, train them. And so most churches are good at these three. Serving, identifying who the leaders are and calling them to training. Now, training, I think, should happen in 2 levels. It should be classroom training like this, but this is only the first step of training. Most training happens on the job. Look at how Jesus did it. That's how he trained. And it's like, come and do it with me. So what we say to guys who are leading small groups as you begin to develop your team, the guys that are really ready to come and stand next to you, get them there early. Go and have braais with them. Dream about what God's busy doing among them. Pull them in close to you like that. And when you go and visit someone in the hospital, you should never visit by yourself. Take somebody with you. If you're going to go and do you're going to drive somewhere to go and help somebody do something, if you believe that God wants to take people through this process of maturity to get them to lay their lives down for Christ, every time you ask someone to join you on something, you're not asking them for a favor, you're giving them an opportunity. That's right. That's what you've got to call them to. And so, culture of serving, that door needs to be wide open. If that door's not open, the process doesn't start. Identify leaders. If that door is not open, nobody's walking through. Everybody just stays serving. And if you don't train them, what's going to happen is there's going to be casualties on the route. You're going to start closing down ministries. You're going to be putting out forest fires. And a whole lot of people are going to get hurt because they don't know what they're doing. Train them. Most churches I go to get 10 out of 10 for door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. It's door number 4 that very few churches do. Release them into ministry. Set them up for success. The illustration I give our team is this. You know when your kid gets a bicycle for the very first time, got the trainer wheels, and they think they're a big girl now because they're riding, a 2-wheeled bike. It's actually a 4-wheeled bike, but I think it's 2. And then you bend the one wheel, and they start to ride like this. And then you take that wheel off, and it's like 1 foot on the ground, and they like this. And eventually, when you take both those training wheels off, you're running behind them, hey? Not many dads go to the top of a tarmac hill, put their 2-year-old daughter on a bike, and say, "Go, girl." Because you know what's going to happen? Grazes, tears, long time till they get back on that bike again. Or if there's a strong-willed child, she'll just kick that bike without getting on it if she's sharp. She's never getting on that thing. The same thing happens with your training. If you train them, tell them, this is a great bike. You should ride this bike. You've got everything it takes to ride this bike. I've told you how to do it. The wheels go around like this. This is the manual. Look at the manual. Look carefully at the manual. If you just stop them there, nothing's going to happen. You've got to run behind them. And so what did I do with Tiny at Stellenbosch? I'll tell you what I did. I put her in the corner. I was coaching every other pastor in that building how to get people and letting them see how thirsty people are to want to get there. Take away the barriers that it costs me. To say, hey, join a connect group. There are so many barriers. Like, where do I find one? They say, go to the involvement desk. You know how many desks there are at the back of the church? Which one is it? What's the name of that thing? I don't even know what I'm asking to join. Do they really want me? Are they going to want me? So I've put someone else in the corner now. And so I've set Tiny up. Tiny will get a phone call from me this week. I've already asked people to go and I've planted a strong person in that group for the first week. And she's going to get a phone call from me. She's done it before, so she should be able to ride that bike. But you want to get up and going. The way you train someone to release someone is that you let them do a little bit at a time. So when you're running behind that bike, you let them go grab the bike. Let them go grab the bike. When you're releasing somebody to preach for the very first time, you don't just train them up, say, okay, you're ready to go, pal. Let them pick their own subject, preach their own way, and then now it's an absolute disaster. What are you going to do? You're going to sit them down and crit them. Now they're already crumpled in a heap because they know they fell off the bike. Now you're going to explain how they fell off the bike. Rather, give them 10 minutes, set them up for success, suggest the type of thing they could be looking at, and then you pick it up after 10 minutes. You preach it, knock it out the park, do a salvation call, people get saved, call that person up to come and pray together because they were part of sowing into that person getting saved, and suddenly they think they're ready, they're Reinhard Bonnke, ready to go. That's how you set them. You're going to get someone to lead a connect group. I've planted, this is my 6th one down in Cape Town, connect groups, and most of them have wound up becoming churches. One of them was an absolute failure. It was a total disaster. They've all left the church. Everybody. And I went back home saying to my wife, "Jack, we are useless at this. This is like so freaking, it's horrific." But in every single one of those other ones, thank the Lord I got back on that horse. Every single other one, it's been a case of letting guys see what I do, share what I do in that meeting, and then I disappear one night and they've got the meeting. And back again the next week. And so, let me wind this up quickly. Door number 1, create a culture of serving. And I don't just create jobs to serve, a culture where everybody wants to serve. Create that. First door open. Call it out of them. Doors open. Now there's like 20% of your church is that someone say to them, "I see potential in you." Guess what? There's a crowd walking along the pipeline. Train them. Now their willingness to move is increased. Let me tell you one more story. One of our very best worship leaders in our entire church is a Zimbabwean man who arrived on our Destiny team. It's our gap year program. And he was extremely shy. I mean, John said earlier he's an introvert. John, firstly, I don't believe that. But secondly, this guy, defined introvert. I knew it for sure, when he came to my home with the Destiny team, and I had a Maltese poodle at the time, who liked to lift its leg on cars and stuff. Anyway, the crew was in my yard, and I saw that look on my Maltese face as it walked up to this guy. And I thought, no, surely he's not going to lift his leg on him. And this guy just stood there. He just stood there, so polite, so self-effacing. He just let the dog lift his leg on him. That was the guy. But we heard that he could play a guitar. But he played in his room. So we had a site that had about 300 people in it, and he was encouraged to go and play. He said no, the guys were inviting him all the time. Eventually, one worship leader, I can't remember who it was, genius worship leader, said to him, I tell you what, just play from behind the curtain. So there's a full band, and we had a school hall, those school curtains. He stood behind the curtain. For months, he played from behind the curtain. But he's a brilliant player. So they thought they were using a backing track. No, they were using this dude. One week, they saw the fret of the guitar sticking out from behind the curtain. And eventually, he moved out after a number of months. Today, he's a raging, amazing worship leader. He was like the extreme case. To get him to pick up his guitar was hectic. To call it out of him, he had to convince himself over months. He didn't need too much training in terms of skill on a guitar, but he needed training on how to stand in front of human beings. And before he was released, he had to have people coach him like this. Now that guy is releasing worship leader after worship leader after worship leader. It doesn't happen automatically. And generally speaking, when a guy pitches up and he says, "Hi, I'm gun for hire, pick me," there's trouble on the way. You want to get this pipeline going. The final door in the pipeline is encourage these guys until Jesus returns. Because if you think, "Yo, got a leader, he's leading now," and you neglect them and you run back to the beginning of your pipeline and you start with these guys, you forget that guy. He's going to go for a number of years maybe, and then he's going to say things like this: got the t-shirt, done that. God's saying to me, I feel the Lord is saying to me, it's time for a sabbatical. And as many as are coming through this pipeline are going to be dropping off the end. Encourage them till the day that Jesus returns. And so as your church gets bigger, you've got to get more skillful at that. You've got to get other people helping you to encourage them. You've got to get people looking after pastoring, looking after your current crop of leaders. Let me just go through them one more time. Create a culture of serving. Call it out of them. You should have lists. Your whole leadership team should have lists of people that they're calling God's purposes out of. Train them formally on the job. Release them. Find creative ways to do that. And then encourage them till Jesus returns. If you're not going to ask any questions, I've got a whole thing I'd like to talk to you about on leading strong leaders, very strong leaders, because when you build a team, very strong guys are going to pop up every now and again, and how to lead that. But that we will only do if they're not questions. Are there questions on what I've said? Anything I've said from the beginning, from Peter to now? Yes? Okay, so did you hear that question? How do you handle people that come from other churches, particularly churches that do not partner with us, that have got different set of values, maybe even have a different doctrine? How do you engage with them? How do you release them? How do you let them serve? Is that the question you asked? And I think that's a brilliant question. And if you are listening to what Peter said, which said his first W, and when he audits his church health, is welcome, I think they need to be welcomed. Not for their gift, not because of their pedigree, not because of their qualification, not because of their anointing, just welcomed. When David's mighty men came to him at Ziklag, the first thing David did, it said he walked out across the plain. And the men that were coming to him were powerful. One was a match for 1,000. They could shoot with left and right hands. And they had faces like lions. That's the sort of people you're talking about, eh? They come from another church, come from another tribe. They got scars on their face. Why? Because in ministry you get scratched. They can throw with the left hand and the right hand. Maybe you only right-handed. They might even be more skilled than you. But they come with a lot of baggage. First thing David does, he walks out, he looks at them, and he welcomes them. And this is what he says to them. So I've just got one question for you boys. Are you for me, or have you come to do me harm? And they say, no, we're with you. So what's he trying to do? He's not know about their curriculum, their CV. He's saying, I want to know your heart. Why are you coming here? So they said, no, David, we're for you, we're with you. He says, we'll see about that. He takes them and he eats with them for 3 days. Eats and drinks. The cynical part of me says he fed them a lot of drink to see what was in their heart when they talked like liberally, but I don't know. But he ate with them and he drank with them. I'm not saying get them drunk. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. You got to be careful what you say here. I'm just saying you eat with them, and he was getting to know them. And so I would say if someone comes from another group, firstly they need to be welcomed because they are a human that's been hurt most often, and you want to connect on a heart level. And as soon as they start to talk about their CV, say, put the CV away. I just want to know your heart. Put that thing down. And what I'm not saying is give that guy a pulpit. What I'm not saying is give that guy a group. When you talk about a guy from another tribe, I'm saying get him into the pipeline. That's bad language. That's bad language. I'm saying give him the opportunity to be a son of the house, to serve. If you serve, look, if you adopt a child into your family, if you adopt a kid from an outside family, And all your kids have got chores. Some doing the rubbish, some are mowing the lawn, some are cleaning your car. And the adopted child, you say, just sit in the corner there, don't worry, we got this covered. You're the guest. As long as he's in that guest chair, he's not part of the family. But when you say to him, roll up your sleeves, boy, go chop the wood, he belongs. You haven't made him a leader. You haven't put him in front of your church. What you've done is you put him with an opportunity to lay down his life and to become part, do what family does. And then, this is, remember, what we're wanting to discern is where's his heart. And if he is of noble heart, and you're praying this prayer, this is the prayer that the disciples prayed when they were wanting to replace Judas. Remember? They need to replace Judas, Acts chapter 1. They pick two guys, they're not filled with the Holy Spirit, these chaps, so they don't really know how to hear God properly. So they say, we think it's these two. They make them draw straws, first and only time that you'll find that. But they pray this prayer, Father, show us their heart. That's the prayer they prayed. Want to see their heart. Want to see what's in there. And as soon as you know what's in there, then in your mind, if you know there's a pure heart, he might have all sorts of different ways. He might have to unlearn a whole lot of very unhelpful things. We don't like people calling us Pastor Grant. There's been a guy with me for 2 years. I love this guy. I've played golf with him. I've spent time with him. I started a home group in his house. I've loved this man. And they've got a traumatic situation in their family, and their wife was offended by something that someone in my home group said to her. So she left the church, and I've been trying to hang on to this guy. And I got a text from him as I got on the plane. I want to see you. And I know what that I want to see you is about. He's leaving. But this is how he addressed the hello to me. Pastor Grant. He stopped calling me Pastor Grant. But in the midst of all this, he's now, and I haven't released him to lead. He's led nothing. But he's been 2 years he's been with me. Because I've known there's issues. He comes from another place where there's a hierarchy. And if I sent him into leadership now, he would hurt our people. He's bailing now. He's leaving me. I've tried for 2 years. I tell you what, I was so sad. The last part of my airplane trip, I just thought, I know what that pastor, he's now calling me, he's going back. He's gone back. His Pastor Grant has told me he's gone back. Before he even tells me what's on that conversation, he's gone back. And if I had released that guy prematurely, before he's dealt with these things in his heart, I'm telling you, there would be more than just me being hurt today. There'd be other people being hurt today. So if it's someone you don't know, you're doing that, but that doesn't stop them serving. That doesn't stop them getting involved. That doesn't stop you calling leadership out of them and saying, I see that potential in you. It doesn't stop you doing that. It doesn't stop you training them. What it does do, until you're ready to release them, because you know what's in their heart, it stops you doing that. So you might say, Grant, you're contradicting yourself with Tani. Actually, I know Tani. When I preached in that church at City Hill, I've seen her in action. I know her. I know where she's been discipled. This is not from another church. The man who leads City Hill has been discipled in our church. He was a pastor with us for 15 years. What's in her is in me. I know that. So when I give you that example of releasing someone, because there's a revival happening there, I'm saying she's going to have to be trained on the job, that one. But I've been able to discern what's in that heart. You don't risk what's in the heart before you release them to lead. Does that make sense to you? So let's just say you discern pretty quickly, this guy's got your heart, got a pure heart, and you feel released. I would say, check it out with your other elders. So it's not just your discernment. Make sure that you're not making a wrong call. And then I think you can speed up this process properly. I told you about a guy who comes from Gauteng. He actually comes from this church that I'm standing in right now. He was an elder here. That guy, I know I can hand him my home group very quickly. Very quickly. Because our hearts have joined. So while I'm giving you a pipeline, I'm not giving you a step-by-step process that everybody has to tick off before you give them a badge. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you've got hundreds of people coming through this pipeline in your lifetime. And you've got to make sure they're all serving, you're calling it out of people, You're busy training them, and you're releasing them, and you're putting them into ministry. But remember my fourth thing I said today, don't risk on character. You can have people coming through this pipeline, and you're saying, God, show me the heart, show me the heart, show me the heart, show me the heart. If the heart is fruit, yeah, they're not going anywhere. They're serving for a long time. And you're praying, God, sort out what's in that heart. Does that make sense? It's so difficult when you deal with these issues because I feel I've got to say this to our tribe. Risk. Stop being so conservative. Let them go. That's what I want to say. But I know that some people will throw the baby out of the bathwater and they'll go and get the devil himself leading a home group. So you've got to be careful. Got to be careful. But I feel the prophetic word that's needed over our tribe is where you see a glimmer of God moving, blow onto that thing. Let the fire of God blow there. Revival's messy, man. That early church, don't tell me when the 3,000, 5,000 were added to the early church, they had all gone through, had all got a diploma before they went into leading a home group. Don't tell me that. It's messy. So anyway, sorry, I got overly passionate there. If you can go out with one thing, you should be way more wild than you think you are. Because God's way wilder than you. I'm an old bullet now. And the one thing that I am concerned about the most is that people around me slot into a rut, become religious, and get so jolly boring nobody sees Jesus because they just see the religion. So having said that, don't risk with character. And you know, God can give you discernment. We need discernment. You know, the gifts of the Spirit to each one. The manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. To one is given. The discernment. As a church planter, you should be before the throne of heaven and say, God, give me discernment. I want to see wolf from sheep, from leader, from introvert, from extrovert, from whatever. Give me the discernment of the whole spectrum. Let me see it. Give me heavenly vision. Discernment, if you have, and discernment is not like, you know, just I've got a good EQ. It's not that. Discernment is from the throne of heaven, and it's a gift. God saying, that one, that one, that one, that one. I'm still working on them. Pause. That's what discernment is. And discernment can save you a lot of pain. Yes. Did you hear that question? How do you not demoralize somebody when they've got to this point and you've got a check and you don't release them? Well, if you've got a little clique called your leaders, the holy chosen ones, and he's looking at that enviously and thinks, oh Lord, when I get there, I'm a big boy. You are dead in the water. But if you've blurred the edges and you've made this messy and everybody is serving, remember, everybody's a leader, and everybody is having prophecy spoken over them. Come on, come on, come on. And you've got everybody being trained up. You know, when I have an elders meeting, I've got as many non-elders in that meeting as I've got elders. Because in those, every now and again, I've got to call just the elders, you know, and other guys not there. Why? And so there's lots of people there. It's not a holy club. And if he gets to this stage now, and he's been walking with this multitude, you say, God, my church plant is not a multitude. No, listen, if you've got 20 in your church, and they're all on this journey, you haven't developed the click thing. Then that guy, when you get to here, I just circle them back into something else. I don't say to them, they go sit on the shelf and go and get your heart healed. And when your heart's healed, come back and talk to me when you're a big boy, then I'm going to release you. No, we get him. God's working on the journey. And so what can he do? He can serve until Jesus comes back. And if you elevate leadership above serving, you're also in trouble. So Peter said this to me this weekend. I hope I don't misrepresent you. And I hope it doesn't sound arrogant. It was just what he said. This weekend, I drove to Paternoster, which is, I didn't even know it existed. It's in the sticks. It is half an hour the other side of Langebaan. That's the furthest I've ever been in my life. Some dude wants to start a church there. He's got like, how many were in the room? About 12, 15 people in the room. I'm preaching in Stellenbosch, which is a couple of hours away. Well, maybe 2.5, 3 hours away. I'm going to see Langebaan. I go up to Paternoster. He leads the home group. He didn't even let me lead his home group. Like, I've driven all this way. He didn't even ask me my opinion. He just like, yeah, okay, come and watch me. Come and watch me. His little wife put on those headphones that you use if you're a pilot of an airplane. She had a microphone in front of her. She had Hillsong behind her, and she let it rip, Pete? Just for the 11 of us, we all sat in our chairs there watching this diva go for it. And then he whips out his schedule, and he takes us through. But that was like one of my highlights of the weekend. There's a flame there. What's that going to become? I have no idea. But they are wandering through their neighborhood, doing what Peter said, leading people to Jesus, having them in a life. I don't know what's going to happen there. He said something very strange to me coming back. He said to me something like, why did you go to them? You said something like that. Why did you go to them? Most people who lead, big churches, they call them to come to you. And that doesn't cross my mind. Because for me, that guy there is as important as the rock star at Stellenbosch in front of hundreds of people. And if you start creating, if at the end of your pipeline is the pot of gold or the emerald city, your person is going to get their heart broken. But if you as a lead guy can celebrate Paternoster as much as you can celebrate a massive crowd, when you send the fellow with a issue back to do something as menial as drive 250 kilometers to listen to the diva on her Hillsong playlist, and the dude just say, go there, my friend. I want you to go see what's going on. Go and encourage them. He's not a leader. What's he doing? He's encouraging. Is there a qualification to be an encourager? No. So what I'm saying to you, a long way to answer this question, is you don't stick him on a shelf and say, hey, you, O troubled saint, are the one with a fraught heart. You sit on that shelf until the Lord has dealt with you. And when you are good enough for our church, we will consider releasing you. If you create that impression, heartache, pain, but you shouldn't be creating that. You shouldn't be creating that. You should be celebrating. There's not a hierarchy on this pipeline. This pipeline's lying flat on its face. That's doing life, doing church together. Hope that was clear. Any other questions? Me. If you do church in team, you get encouragement every day. I walked into this room, I saw John Anderson preaching about preaching, and as I walked into the room, you know what went through my mind? Just hundreds of sermons that he had preached in Maritzburg. That is more than a decade ago. But we shared decades of ministry together. Just being in the presence and watching him fly today, that encourages me. If you do ministry like this, if you put yourself as the senior pastor, if you put yourself as the dominee, what counts? And everybody else is looking for you for help. You're not going to last long, pal. You've got to be surrounded by brothers. And what I'm describing here is probably, the pipeline's probably a bad picture. These are cultures you want to establish. A culture of serving, a culture of calling it out of people, a culture of training, a culture where everybody's doing it. So it's not just me doing the encouraging. What I was so chuffed about, that guy at Stellenbosch, he's not even an elder and he's leading that congregation. Because it's just, that's what happens in revival. It comes to all our revival stuff, but we haven't laid hands on him yet. That guy sent me a text this morning. It was because he's like a, clever academic guy, knows how to use computers properly. And he had a circle, and he had wagon spokes like this, and he had in the middle of the circle, words of encouragement. And every one of his leaders, he gave me a summary of his prophetic word over all of them. I don't know why he gave me that, but boy, that encouraged me. So that guy's encouraging him better than I am. So that's how it happens. If you do team, you encourage each other. Mm-hmm. What I've been describing, so his question was, new church plant, putting the team together. What I've described to you today is exactly it. Milnerton, the story I gave. Tony Garcia, from Tony's Liquors. The fireman, the guy from the golf course, the ex-Cornerstone pastor. A couple that's now started inviting people that they ride on the bus with. My team is being busy put together. I think you've got to pray this prayer, God, send me the team. Where's the next elder? I think they're somewhere in that room. Where's the next worship leader? There's no one in that room who can play an instrument yet. So if you're going one step further and you're saying now, I've got a crew together, I want this thing to take shape on a Sunday, if that's the question you're asking, I think these 5 things you've got to look at very early on in planting a church. These 5 need to be on your team. You've got to be asking God for this. Number 1, people who can help you worship. If you're gifted like I am in worship, you need a lot of help there. Number 2, someone who's never late, who can be your administrator. Someone who's never late and answers their phone. That person's already ticked 50% of the character traits needed to help you with your admin. So, a worship leader, someone to help you administratively. And what's that for? Is someone going to open the joint up? Is someone going to pay the electricity bill? Is somebody going to get the communion? Is someone going to remember to bring the sound equipment? Is someone going to put the chairs up? Is someone going to clean the place? Is somebody going to actually remember to take someone's name down? Is somebody going to do some, social media if you're Peter in London? So you need a worship person, administrative person. I think you need to start to ask people for someone who's got like a shepherd heart who can help you shepherd people. You're not appointing a pastor, but when your small groups start developing, you want champions who can help champion those small groups. And I don't think it's just one person. You want that to happen because discipleship happens like that. If you're not at a university town or in an old age home, you need someone who's got a real heart for children, especially in today's generation. And no matter how that's expressed, some people do it in their church services, other people do it in special, some people do half church, half there. It doesn't matter. Someone's got to have a heart for kids, see the kids, want to disciple the kids. And if you don't have that, you're going to have a big, big problem. And then I think you've got to start asking God for people that have got a gift on a microphone. So, so that you're not just the only person talking. So when I would put a team together in the early stages, I'd be saying, Lord, as soon as the first kid arrives, God, send me somebody who loves children. And the second thing was, as soon as there's more people than I can remember from last week, boy, I need someone to help me administrate the thing. As soon as, Auntie comes out with her headphone and the Hillsong playlist, God, please send us a muso. And then as soon as you're going to be running a small group beyond yours, Lord, somebody else with a heart to shepherd people, someone. I can't just have a whole lot of Tony Garcias who are at AA. I've got to have somebody who says, I'm going to start helping you lead. Don't know if that's... Mm-hmm. Did you hear that question? If you lead teams who lead teams who lead teams who lead teams, how do you not get your values and your doctrines watered down as you go? Jesus took that risk. Jesus really imparted into 12. Definitely had some extra input into the 72. And, the 120 that were there obviously were hanging around quite a bit. But to think what he was doing, to take a planet with his values and his doctrine, he trusted that when it was caught properly, it will be carried on. But I think the only safeguard for someone who's initiating something is that you yourself stay fresh with those things. One of the best things for One Life Church has been me going to Cape Town for two reasons. One, I'm the cork out the bottle, and I think everyone there says, praise the Lord, he's gone, so we can do things. But the second thing, I'm now leading home groups. The things we've been preaching for 51 years, it's back in view. And I've looked back and I've seen actually some of these values do slip. And I think you've got to, it's like when you don't know that yet, it is Matt, eh? Sorry, I see Michael sitting there, just make sure I get the right guys. When you're raising your own family, you've got to have your finger on the pulse, and you can see actually that one's not doing so well here. And so when you're looking at your church, one of the things that an elder is described as is an overseer. An overseer not only looks at vision into the future, but he looks over the flock. He looks over the sheep. And God will tell you, there's something failing there. And so you go in there and you work on that particular value. But that's the way Jesus did it. So what I'm saying, there isn't like a manifesto that you put out and you make everybody remember. It's not that. It's like you've got to live it. You've got to live it, you've got to catch it.